Hi all, it's Rambler here to talk about a few Neo Geo AES games I've added to my collection recently. 3 to be exact, however, wait, that's not 3, that's 5. That's better. However, these games are controversial within the Neo Geo collecting scene, especially the AES collecting scene, and I thought I'd talk about them because somehow, over the last 2 or 3 months, I've managed to get these copies of these games, and I'm pleased with them. I'm really glad I own them, but I think they're worth commenting on and just worth talking about because if you want to get into the Neo Geo collecting scene, or if you're already in it, or if you don't know, I just think it's an interesting topic to talk about concerning these 3 games. We'll start with the least controversial, and then we'll move on to the other ones. So, the first one I want to talk about is Samurai Shodown 4. I think it's Amakusa's Revenge. I can never quite pronounce the name of the main bad guy in this game, but yeah, this is quite a controversial game when it came out because usually for Neo Geo games there are 2 versions. There's the Japanese version and the English version, as in when it comes to the box art and the cart labelling and the manuals, there's a Japanese version and an English version. The actual game itself is exactly the same for both countries. But when this game came out, and I think 4 other Neo Geo games as well, but I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, there was a Korean version that came out, and the Korean version was slightly different in that things were removed from the game to censor it for the Korean audience, mostly because apparently back in the mid-90s to early 2000s, I'm not sure if it's still the same today, in Korea they really don't like Japanese and Japanese culture so much, and therefore if you bought anything that was Japanese you had to have a lot of the sort of Japanese characters, as in the the lithographics and the character stuff removed from things, so that apparently Japanese culture wasn't shared around the country. I don't know what it's like today, whether that's relaxed or not, and I'm not really going to comment or go there, but for this game they released a Korean version, and this is the version I have right here, and as you can see it looks exactly like the English version. It's got the same English artwork on the front, or the US artwork, on the front and on the sides and on the back as well. You'll have to excuse my dogs for barking, they're just they have been absolutely terrible lately. In fact, I better go shut them up, otherwise they're going to be annoying in the video. So back in a bit and then we'll carry on talking about why this game is controversial. Okay, that's taken care of. So yes, as I was saying, this is the Korean version, and as you can see on the outside artwork, it's exactly the same as the US version. If we open it up, there we go. The manual you get with it is, of course, the same as the US version, or the English version. So you've got the English outer box art, you've got the English manual as well, and you even get the English cartridge, or at least the English labelling too. So, I mean, mine's a little bit peeling at the top there, but that's not actually a bad thing really, considering what I'm going to do with this cartridge. But yeah, it looks identical to the US release of the game. And if you're really fussy, the contact points below as well, I think, are identical to the US version. There might be a couple of differences, I'm not sure. But the main telling of whether this is the Korean version or not is if you look on the back of the cartridge, it says, although I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see where you're on this camera, but just about, it says made in Korea. Whereas most, if not all, well not all, but most SNK Neo Geo AES game cartridge shells say SNK made in Japan on the back. But no, for some reason this game and 4 others were released in Korea, and they are heavily censored, and this game unfortunately is the most censored of the 5 that were released. So it's a bit of a bummer, and the things they censored from this game, the introductory sequence to this game has been cut completely out. The name has changed as well when you boot it up. It isn't Samurai Shodown 4 or Samurai Spirits. It's called like The Legend of the Warrior, I think, or something like that it's called. And then when you play the game, the blood's been removed, so you get like the white sweat stuff. And there's no voice commentator in the game. There's like a couple of voices of the announcer saying Victory and conclusion, but he doesn't introduce the match. The characters don't have any voices either, apart from when they get hit, they say ooh ah, but that's about it. And the fatalities have been removed from the game. This game actually introduced within the series fatalities where you can cut your character in half if you killed them and such, but they removed them from this game as well. And there's nothing you can do to get past the censorship. The censorship is on the cartridge, so if you've got like a Unibios chip like I have, the only thing you can get on this is red blood, but that's it. The game still says The Last Warrior or whatever it's called, and yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, unfortunately. So yeah, so why did I buy this version then? Well, at the time I wasn't going to because I saw the Made in Korea and I thought, oh, that's different. Did my research and heard about this Korean version of the game. So you thought, oh, right, I better not buy it. I want the US version instead. But it then turns out, after doing lots and lots of deep reading in forums and all kinds of stuff, there's actually two Korean versions of the game. One that's censored and one that isn't. And you can't tell which one's which, pretty much. Well, at least I thought I could tell which one's which. Some of these Korean cartridge shells weren't actually black. Some of them appear like this sort of very dark navy blue colour. And if you have a look at the context at the bottom, the pattern's different as well. There was two of these for sale on eBay at the time. There was one that I bid on, which I've got here, and there was another one which I thought was definitely the Korean version because the cartridge was a bluey blacky colour and the contacts were different in terms of the pattern below. And I thought, oh well, that's got to be the Korean version. Maybe this is the uncensored version. But no, it's the censored version. So it's probably that I got it the wrong way round or something. But apparently I don't think you can tell if you've got the Korean version, that is, it says Made in Korea on the back, whether it's censored or not censored just from the cartridge alone. I think you just have to hedge your bets and buy it and hope for the best. And as a result, it's not worth nearly what I paid for it. I paid far too much for this game. Although the seller was very good to say it was the Korean version, he just said that he hadn't tested it. Somebody told him in the photos it was the Korean version, so he just said, oh, I just pointed that out, but he hadn't actually tested the game to see what difference it made. So I just went by pictures and stuff. So yeah, I got it wrong basically. I thought maybe this was the uncensored Korean version, but it's not. But having said that, it's still playable. You know, it's still Samurai Shodown 4. I had a quick go on it just now, and yeah, it still plays. And I was able to get red blood to work, so I got a bit of gore going on. It's just a shame that there's no introductory sequence to the game, and none of the voice announcers there, and the characters' voices don't introduce each other. It's a bit of a bummer that, but it's still playable. It's still Samurai Shodown 4. So yeah, but I'm probably going to end up getting a Japanese copy to go alongside this one, so at least then I've got a uncensored version of the game. I'm not going to buy a US version of this game because it does go for a lot of money, probably about £1,000 upwards on auction at the very least, and they don't come up very often. So, and you don't know if the seller's not honest with you. You don't know if you're going to get the Korean version or not because it's, you know, they might just hide that detail from you. So yeah, but anyway, that's the first game I've added to my collection, and I'm glad I've got it. I mean, I'm a bit disappointed it was the Korean version, but it's Samurai Shodown 4. I'll get the Japanese version to go alongside it, and we'll leave it at that. And now my manual plastic bag's collapsed. Oh well, doesn't matter. I'll sort that out later. So that's the first game I've added to my collection. The second game is a lot more controversial in terms of when it came out. In fact, that it didn't actually come out, and this is technically a bootleg. And that is King of Fighters 2000, the US release. Although you can tell that this is a bootleg because of this weird glittery sticker that says number 12 out of 100. So yeah, when the year 2000 came, SNK were pretty much bankrupt, and they declared themselves bankrupt that year. I think they released Metal Slug 3, or they were able to get out Metal Slug 3 for a Japanese and US launch, as well as Garou Mark of the Wolves. But King of Fighters 2000 they only released officially in Japan. They went bankrupt before they could actually get the US release out instead. So technically there is no US release version of the King of Fighters 2000. So if you're someone like me who's collecting all the English versions of the AES cartridges, or at least trying to, well no, I won't be able to collect all of them because some of them are just, well, it's just not going to happen, but at least collect as many as I can. Yeah, this version of the game, the English version, or the English release I should say, never came out. But then a company called Neo Geo Freak managed to buy existing AES cartridge shells and PCB boards that had the game on it. They just hadn't put them in the shells. And I think they also bought actual US labels, you know, the US front covers, box covers, like you can see in front. I think they bought some of those as well, because I think they had printed them, they just hadn't released it, or something like that. I don't think this is one that they made it themselves. This was what they were going for. And they basically released their own US version of the game, and they released about 100 copies, roughly, although nobody really knows how many versions they released. But a lot of people don't like to collect. If you're a proper Neo Geo collector, you tend to stay away from the English release of this game, because according to the purists, it didn't come out, it doesn't exist, and therefore any form of this game that you've got an English copy of is a bootleg. And I happen to agree, I won't deny. But this came up about, again, 2 or 3 months ago on French eBay site, well, French eBay basically, and I got it for, I thought, a reasonable price, and nobody bid on it. I was surprised. I thought, oh, well, somebody's going to bid on that. Price is going to go up and up and up and up and up. You know, the English versions I have seen of this game is usually the Neo Geo Freak version that a lot of people don't like. But this came up and I thought, oh, perhaps it's a conversion, but the auction listing was like, no, it's not a conversion, it's a brand new copy of the game. And I was like, oh. And it was made by NCI, or Neo Conceptual International, which is a French company. And they said, oh no, it's just basically it's the English release of the game. Oh, that's how they sold it anyway. And I thought, oh well, if this is the closest thing I'm going to get to an English release, I'll put a cheeky bid on it. I didn't think I was going to win it. And I did, because I was the only bidder on it. So I thought, oh blimey, nobody really likes to collect this version at all. So in terms of its value, I'm quite happy to say that it doesn't have any value, because I just wanted an English version, or an English cover art version of the game in my collection. So it means something to me, but I know monetary wise, it's not really worth anything on the collector's scene. I'll probably get about a couple of hundred for it, tops, maybe, if somebody really wanted it like me, but that'd be about it. But I didn't pay much over that, so I was happy with it. This is the English release of the game. Well, I said the English release of the game. This is the English version of the game, bootleg style. But it's a really good one. I'm very pleased. The artwork is absolutely perfect. The colouring on it is absolutely perfect. The print is absolutely perfect on this. And it's just amazing. In terms of the quality of it, it's amazing. If we open it up, we get the manual as well, in a little baggie. And the manual's, again, in really, really good quality print. I think you can tell it's a bootleg, but just by the fact that although the print quality is really good, it's a little bit smudgy, I suppose. So I think if any purists out there who have got the Neo Geo Freak version could probably tell it's a bootleg version. But actually, to be fair, I think the print on this is really good, to the point where I think this is legitimately the English version of the manual. It's that good. It's really sharp, and the colours are bold and everything. So I don't know, but the manual is just in really good condition, and it's a really good version. It's got that nice smell of a Neo Geo manual smell to it if you whiff it, like that. Oh god, that smells good. So the manual is top notch. Like, it is absolutely a perfect replica of what I would assume to be the English version of this manual. And then here's the cartridge. Now I did make one addition to this cartridge. When I got it, it only had the cartridge label of the game. It didn't have this warning label on the bottom. I just stuck that on because I got one from Neo Store online. I might consider taking it off again, getting a hairdryer on it and just heating up the adhesive. So not the actual King of Fighters label, but just this gold version label on it. I just wanted to put it on because the later King of Fighter games, 96, 97, 98 and 99, had this warning label. So I thought, I'll just put it on there just to match it. But yeah, there you go. And it's it's really good. Again, the print quality is good. It's probably hard to tell on this camera, to be honest. You'll have to take my word for it. But yeah, the print on it is really good. Again, a little blurry maybe, tiny bit if you really looked at it sharply. But it plays absolutely fantastically. So as far as I'm concerned, I've got an English version of the game. Again, identical to the Japanese version. When I say English version, I just mean English stickered version of the game. Like I said, the game is exactly the same. And it's really cool, and it really, really rocks, and I love it. So I'm glad I've got it in my collection, but I am happy to say that it's worth nothing, and I'm condoning piracy and all that MacGuffin. And a lot of Neo Geo purists who might watch this will go, "Ah, blasphemy! No, why did you do that, Neo? You son of a..." Another kind of strong, insulting words to throw at my direction. And I get it. I'm not going to stop you. So if you want to leave any abusive comments saying I'm a butthole in the horriblest terms you can do, then yeah, please do so, because obviously, again, if you want to get to the Neo Geo collecting scene, or if you already are a Neo Geo collector, yeah, this is not really official. This is a bootleg, but a really good one, and I'm glad I've got it. And then the last one I've got to show is Samurai Shodown 5 Special. Bootleg version. Yep, this is a bootleg version, again made by the same group who did the King of Fighters 2000, Neo Conceptual International. This was very recent on eBay. There was a few copies being released by them, claiming to be brand new copies, not brand new original copies, just their version of the game. Like, they've apparently teamed up with a company called Atomic Wave, and they've made their own PCB boards. They've made new cartridge shells to fit the game on. They've put new chips on it. I think the chips are not like the old style chips, they're like flash chips, so they're probably just cheap Chinese chips. They just put tape over them or something like that, of the game on the cartridge. And then they've got a brand new box for it, and this box is brand new. It's like a bit like the Neo Geo X Mega Collection box, so that sort of same sort of plasticky feeling, quite cheap but still good. New cover. The outer cover is exquisite. Like, it's again really good, but you can tell it's a knockoff because of the darker colours. If you compared this to a legitimate English release of this game, the colours are a lot brighter, and the grey bit is a brighter grey as well, and the special is a bit more sharper. On here it's very, very discoloured and a bit blurry. But apart from that, everything else is absolutely top notch. And again, the meg count and the logo and everything, and the Neo Geo thing, the colours and the print is just spot on, perfect. It's just a bit dark compared to the original release, that's all. But really good. Oops, didn't mean to bash the camera there. And I'm really glad I got this. I paid about 400 for it, and I'm not ashamed to own this bootleg copy of the game, because I will never own an official English version of this game. It's just too expensive. More importantly, this is the unfixed version of the game as well, which is one of the other reasons why I got this. If this was a bootleg version of the fixed version, I wouldn't have bothered, because I'm really interested in the unfixed version, because when this game came out, it was delayed a week back in 2004 when it came out. For the AES, and then they released it, and it was heavily censored compared to the arcade version. There was no blood, no one-hit kill moves that they introduced into the game where you can just like completely destroy your opponent no matter what life they've got left on their life gauge. And there were some glitches with it, and they did that because there was an incident in Japan shortly before the release of this game where a man killed, I think, about 13 people with a samurai sword. So SNK Playmore at the time thought, oh, we better not release the game on the AES with all the gore in it, because people might think we're glamorising samurai violence when we're not, especially when this incident had happened. So they censored the game, and obviously people who bought it were really pissed off, because it was like 340 quid brand new at the time. And in the end, SNK Playmore decided to recall the cartridges and partially restore the blood and partially restore the one-hit kill moves, but still censored slightly. You know, they just made it a little less censored. So unless you had the original arcade cartridge, the MVS cartridge of this game, you couldn't unlock all of the, or you couldn't play the game with the full blood and gore and all the one-hit kill moves. So it was a real bummer. But then a really smart chap who came up with the UniBIOS chip by the name of Razula said that if you had the unfixed version of the game and you installed his UniBIOS chip into the Neo Geo AES console or MVS console, you could unlock all of the gore and fatalities and one-hit kill moves, because the original unfixed version, the patch they used to censor it, still contained the original code to the game, and he found a way to get it so that the original code came back, and you can play the full uncensored original arcade release if you had the unfixed version. And as a result, if you're collecting this game for the AES, Japanese or English, if you want the unfixed version, they go for a lot of money. I think recently a Japanese version of this game unfixed went for about £1,800, nearly 2,000. The cheapest English release I've seen of this game unfixed was about, I think it was like £900 or £1,000 back in 2014. It was a collector selling off his collection from Italy. I can't remember actually if it was the unfixed version or the fixed version, but either way I just didn't have enough money to own it, so I had just enough to get this, and I'm quite happy I've got it. So yes, again, I don't really condone piracy, but for this particular game I'm making an exception, because I'm never going to get an unfixed version, an original unfixed version for, well, at all. It's just too expensive. But yeah, again, it's a really good bootleg. I'm really pleased with the quality of it. You know, I know the front cover is a bit dark, but everything else is really sharp and bold. Like, you really couldn't tell, apart from the logo. And the back is fine. The cartridge is in my Neo Geo at the moment, actually, over there. The cartridge is brand new, so the shell is brand new. It's not like a normal conversion or bootleg where they've used like an old AES cartridge. It's an absolutely brand spanking new cartridge, and the PCB boards are their own custom PCB boards. So it's like a completely brand new cartridge, and the sticky label again that they've put on it is exquisite in quality. Again, the colours are really bold. It looks just like the original sticky label, but you can tell it's a little tiny bit blurry, or you know, some of the text looks a little bit blurry when viewing it at close edge. So you can tell it's not quite perfect, but damn near close. You have to really scrutinise to see it. So it's really cool that, at least for a bootleg, I was really pleased about that, and it works absolutely perfectly. I've played it on my Neo Geo, no problems at all, works perfectly, and the I've got the UniBIOS chip, as I said, so I've been playing the uncensored version, and again, no problems at all, works a treat. So I'm pleased to get it, and I think, well, again, it's just one of those bootlegs where I'm just going to have to accept it until somehow I find £3,000 to get an original, and then I'll destroy this one. But until then, you know, I'm sticking with this one. And the manual, again, it came with a manual, again, all the correct sizes of the manual. Feels really good. It's got even got the message on the back that SNK Playmore put on it. Wish everybody a fond farewell to the people who bought Neo back in the day. It's a nice little. I can't read it for you because it's not on the camera, but basically just says a final farewell to all of our loyal customers who have bought Neo Geo AES cartridges back in the day. Thanks very much. We hope you'll support us with our future products on the various other game console systems and arcade systems we will release games for. Neo Geo fans rule, basically. That's not exactly what it says, but that's it summarised. But yeah, it's a really good quality, good, but blurry, and you can tell from the colour scheme that it's slightly off. It's a bit darker compared to the other one. And then if you open up the manual, if you see the original manual, English manual of this, which is very rare by the way, the warning page is actually in yellow, whereas this one's in orange, to replicate the original orange warning pages of the manuals. So yeah, this is definitely a bootleg manual. Don't think for a second it's a real one. It's not. It's a really good one though. The only downside to the manual though is, again, this is where you can obviously tell with the print. It's difficult to show on camera, but when you look at it personally up close, the printing is quite smudgy, as in, like, you can tell it's been sort of it's a copy, basically. You can tell it's a fake. The print's not as sharp as the original. It's a little bit blurry, just a tiny bit, but not blurry enough that you can't read it or see any of the pictures and stuff. In fact, actually, from a distance, it looks fantastic. It's only up close it gets a bit blurry. It could be my eyes, actually, as opposed to the manual itself. Maybe the manual is actually more sharp than they give it credit for. But it's fantastic. It's got all the colours in it and everything. They didn't add the colour. This manual, when it originally came out, was a colourful manual compared to the other ones, which were black and white. But it's an absolutely perfect replica. I couldn't be happier with it. It's a beautiful replica manual. And I'm really pleased to own it again. So again, I know I'm being controversial in that it is a bootleg. So I sort of deem this as the most controversial game I've got in my collection, but I'm happy to own it, and it's just been so much fun playing it. And do you know what? Sod it. I'm having it. So again, if you're a Neo Geo purist collector, I'm sorry if I've offended you by owning this and showing this off. But rest assured, I do not believe for a second that this has value. And if I was to ever resell it for the future, I would definitely claim it's a bootleg. Don't worry, I'm not going to. And the same with King of Fighters 2000 as well. I would never claim that these are original games. These are bootlegs, but really good ones. So yeah, just thought I'd show you and share you these. I might show some gameplay footage of these in the future, because I have got a capture card to do it. So maybe in the future I might show off some gameplay footage. But until then, can I say thank you very much for just joining me on this little excursion of my collection so far. Hope you're all well, and maybe I'll get a video up later today, if not definitely tomorrow, being Sunday. So yeah, anyway, take it easy, have a good one, hope you're all well, and I'll see you in the next video.